We'd like to thank Mainspring Companies for sponsoring Season 1 of The Next Entrepreneur. Mainspring celebrates the entrepreneurial journey, and we are very grateful for their support.
I go to my first trend seminar. A trend seminar is it's the giving the trends of the real estate market. And so I'd been to work there 1 week, and so they put on this big trend seminar. And Mike Falgo, the gentleman, had hired me. He invited me to come. I need to be there. Everybody in our industry was there, the lenders, the appraisers, all the agents. And so Mike gets up there and goes over the state of the economy. And he tells me, he tells the audience, the worst times ever to be in real estate. Where unemployment's X, where the savings and loan crisis has gone through, oil and gas is all-time low. And it's like being in the Great Depression in Louisiana if you had to make a comparison. And I'm just start shaking when he's saying this. And so we leave, I run back to the office, and I run his office. I said, Mike, why did you hire me? And he said, well, you only want to apply for the job.
Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the Next Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm here with our producer, Mr. Daniel Sagona, and our guest today is Mr. Donnie Jarreau. Donnie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited to have you here. You are someone that I have looked up to for a very long time as being an exemplary performer in the real estate and development business, and truly an honor to talk to you. So thank you for dropping by. So tell me what's going on. I saw some recent news. You rebranded your company. You launched a property management and a private equity services company. Tell us what all that's about.
Well, we've always been in the brokerage and development business, and we've managed our properties. And we acquired a lot of properties in the last 6-7 years through partner syndication. But we decided to take it more to a private equity firm on the real estate investment side. And so we've launched JRE, which is Jarreau Real Estate, and there's 3 divisions. There's the private equity side, there's the property management, then there's the real estate brokerage and development.
So on the syndication, what you had been doing previously prior to this private equity move, is that just individual investors that you bundle up for one deal and then you go and you do it again and with different investors? What's the difference?
Well, as you and I have discussed before, when the world turned a little bit in 9 and 10 on the financing, and so I knew I had to, reinvent or re-strategize how we were going to acquire property. So in around 2012 and 13, I started syndicating money amongst family and friends. Well, excuse me, none of my family has money, so I say friends and partners. So at that time, I started identifying real estate. We still believed in the fundamentals of good real estate, location, demographics, traffic counts, and history of the rentals and the property. With that being said, we started doing one-off. So I would get a group and use a local group here in Baton Rouge, and I do have some out-of-state investors, and we would acquire the property. I was the asset and property manager and the managing member of the asset, and it started really, it went pretty quick. And in the last 7 years, our portfolio has grown to over $150 million of mostly retail properties.
Wow.
Probably 85-90% of our portfolio.
So it seems like the advantage that you bring to an investment group like that, besides your knowledge of managing those type of investments, is your experience with the brokerage and identifying opportunities, right? I mean, your hands on the ground, about real estate coming available or whatever, maybe before others. And it seems like that's, you could be in the real estate investment business, but if you didn't have that direct link to deals, it certainly would be a little more cumbersome.
Yes. And the brokerage side, that's when I started in the business in 1989 was the brokerage side. So to me, the brokers know the heartbeat, I think, of the industry and where the deals are, where they think the trends will head in real estate. And so I was able to use that, when I'm going to my partner, say, all right, I would identify a property and I would do financial analysis. I would, one of the first things we always look at, what if the property goes vacant? It doesn't matter who the tenant is. As the world turns quickly, people, tenants, companies are here today and can be in Chapter 7, the next day. So we always look at that. But having the experience of being able to see the property, seeing where, and there's always an exit strategy. We try to target returns 8 to 9% on, cash investment, 11 to 13% on our IRR. So it's just projecting and having a date having a exit date, and then, trying to perform, which, we've been very fortunate on that side. But it does go back to the brokerage side, having that experience being a broker for over 30 years.
Yeah. And so on the private equity model, how does that differentiate between the syndication model?
Well, on the syndication model, I would target groups. If you've 3, 4, 5 investors, usually people that were familiar with each other, that had their partnerships. And so a lot of the first part of the portfolio were different. There's probably 4 or 5 investment groups that I was very fortunate to be able to go to. Now on the private equity side, we're taking a little different approach. I brought a young man in his name is Trey Williams, and he studied abroad for a year and went to other markets in Birmingham and Los Angeles and visited with firms. And this format is happening. I don't want to call it a crowdfunding type format, though it has some similarities to it. But what we're trying to do, and we're almost there, is identify 100 to 200 accredited investors and more of the passive real estate investor, where he comes in and the passive investor is not signing any debt. He's placing equity into the deal, and then he's being reported on the software that we've invested in Juniper Square, JTS, some different things. That's more information than you can even imagine. Right. But it gives them a comfort level. Then they see the history that we've acquired the $150 million portfolio. So they know obviously there is some success there. But, the current investment groups I have, these guys are seasoned. Right. And so what we're trying to, again, target to the passive, to the professional who, it is hard to do real estate. As you've been through this, you've got to find the equity, you got to get the loan, you got to manage it. So if they can come and they say, all right, here's my investment, here's my monthly report, here's my dividend, my distribution, I'm paid monthly. Right. And then from there, hopefully it continues to multiply.
And so do you establish a fund, like private equity fund number one, and fund that up and then go and invest in different properties there, or is that kind of fluid?
No, and we studied the fund. I met with a gentleman in Lafayette who did this in Dallas, and the fund is very difficult. The reason the fund is it's blind. So if we went out there and had a fund and say, if I've got to raise $20 million to go acquire $50 million of real estate, I've got to get the commitment of $20 million. I don't have any properties. So the one-off model we find is a lot better. Here's the property located on this interstate. Here's the history of it. Here's where it's going to return. So they can see, go kick it, go feel it, and it's not a blind fund. So we think the one-off is a better venue, and we're seeing more success with that out there in the marketplace, other marketplaces. We haven't seen anyone in Baton Rouge do what we're doing, or much less in the state of Louisiana. So again, this is something we studied for a while, and we're just launching right now. And so far, we've been in this 30 days, and I think we're close to 100 accredited investors we have that have registered. So we'll start putting product to them.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Donnie, tell us about the current market. 2020, it's been an absolutely crazy year, and we've never seen the brakes put on an economy like this. Curious of your perspective of it from the driver's seat in the industry that you're in.
Well, I think we see a lot of just when you manage this much retail, and retail to me is a heartbeat of commerce out there. What direction, and I think it's too early to tell, because what I'm seeing now, most of our tenants are properly capitalized right now through the PPP means, through the EDIL and different programs. What my concern is the mom and pops that do not have the sophistication to go find these funds. And so as a landlord, we pretty much deferred rent to the majority of our tenants that were struggling. Now, there's some tenants that really did very well. Our Family Dollars, our Ollie's, our Dollar Tree, the discount guys, they flourished during this time, our grocery stores. But I think in the next 90 to 180 days, we'll have a better idea of what and who will stay open. I think the problem you're going to see from the small retailers, the mom and pops and restaurants and retail, that were making 5 or 10% total profits for the year. Now they've been shut down. Now they've got to if they're not capitalized, they've got to get new inventory. If it's a restaurant or whatever, and then they sit back. All right, do I really want to go do this? And I think a lot of this is you're going to see people that were on the bubble anyway and going, I don't want to do this anymore. But with that being said, I think the restaurants that stay open, I think there'll be more market share. So the companies that do get through this, but we think we're going to lose 5 to 10% of our tenants, and we're about 95% occupied in our current occupancy, and so we think it could be 5 or 10%. But again, back to the fundamentals. If you're well located and the checkpoints of the demographics, of the traffic counts, and the history, you'll release it. So we're not in panic mode. I think the lenders the conventional lenders locally have really reached out and done their part to support the landlords, knowing that we're having trouble collection, but everything starts back. So this 90-day deferment, which has kind of been standard to give our tenants, and the lenders have given to us. Now we'll start shaking out in the next 180 days. We'll see what kind of, we'll have a better idea where we are with our tenants.
So if you look at the mix of properties that you've been acquiring over the last 6 or 7 years, you've mentioned grocery stores and retail of every description. It seems the Dollar Trees and the mom and pops, but you've also had a strong presence in the health club business for 40 years. I mean, forever, right?
Yes. Well, I started Foxy's Fitness Club when I was 17. And so the fitness has been a love of mine. I don't call it a hobby by no means, because we're well invested into it. I worked in for the Wahlbanger back in the 80s, back when it was a court club. I founded Spectrum Fitness Club in 1992, and we grew that to 8 locations. Ended up selling the majority of those approximately 10 years ago to the Peak Performance Physical Therapy guys who've done a great job with it. And then we started a concept called Regimen Fitness 3 years ago. It's a studio fitness, and it's a 3 platform, and we've sold and opened 17 locations. So it's something that's always in me. But I think part of my passion is truly I believe in fitness. I watch people's lives improve. I watch it turn people. And so I guess that's always been my passion for the fitness business.
So in the Regimen business you mentioned, so did you sell franchises? Is that what you did?
We did. We started, I met a gentleman, E.K. Navin, and E.K. Navin had worked for Orange Theory. And I met him 3 years ago at our fitness trade show. And I was chatting with my partner, Troy Archer. And he had a concept called Red Zone that he was doing inside fitness clubs. And it was the same. It was a studio fitness, and had 3 platforms. When I say 3 platforms, the platforms are a cardio platform, a build type CrossFit platform, and a box. Where the Orange Theory, which is over 1,100 locations, more just a cardio concept. So anyway, we begin to talk, and I meet him. He's from Charleston, and I go down and visit his things. And first thing I ask him, well, why haven't you started a franchise? I mean, your concept is great. I mean, there's a market out there for it. And we came to an agreement. He moved to Baton Rouge. We went and hired Tom O'Keefe. Tom O'Keefe was just retired from Smoothie King. He was a CFO and a patent attorney by trade. He was also the counsel for Anytime Fitness for several years, and for Ruth Chris Steakhouse, a very seasoned veteran. And so he pretty much showed us how to structure the franchise. And we've gone real slow with this. We have sold really organically, just contacts we know. We started it. We began as a license because it took us a year to become a franchise. And so, but we have 17 locations. We just signed our second location in Austin, get ready to come up, another location in Macon. And we sold the rights to Canada this past February to Good Life Fitness. For most people don't know Good Life Fitness is. Good Life Fitness is a larger fitness club owner in North America. Patch Evans and his team, he's a sole owner, owns 450 locations in mostly all in Canada. But they came, and that's another story. But he came, and his team found us, and their team told us it's the best programming they have ever seen. They came down and visited with us, and he called me on the phone. He actually offered to buy our company. He said, I'd rather buy it. And I said, well, we're not quite ready for that yet. And so anyway, we came to agreement. He bought the rights to Canada. So they were getting ready to open up 10 units. Obviously, COVID hits, and they're on pause. But we think their first location will open up in July with their schedule.
So, of course, your 17 units are the ones that are the franchise there on pause as well. I
Yes,
suspect.
well, we own actually 4 of them are corporate units. And
Okay.
so here in Louisiana, we have one in Pensacola, Florida, one in Corporate Boulevard in Baton Rouge, one in Gonzales, one in Bluebonnet. And so the state we're open to 50% capacity,
I see.
which it's good to get our members back. They're not profitable at 50% capacity, but at the same time, we feel we owe the service. We have really, the interesting thing about our concept, we were really high on sanitation before this, of cleaning before and after the workouts, because we do classes. It's not a type studio you just walk in, you have to come to the class. So we were fortunate that we had been practicing good sanitation there. But we've got about 65% of our membership back. The other 35% is chose to freeze their membership. The day we closed on March 16th, we froze everyone's membership.
Right.
A lot of other competitors continued to draft their members, and we didn't think that was good practice. So I think it's going to pay off in the long run. But I still think there's, I think people guard it. There's some people not ready to come back, and we understand that, and we try to be sympathetic to that. So we'll let them freeze their membership until they're ready. Even if we're back, state is full swing again soon, maybe in 30, 60 days, we're going to let our members stay frozen. It's their choice when they're ready to come back.
It's interesting how the health clubs have, like we mentioned, been such a prevalent part of your whole business life, and that's where you started. You mentioned in Foxy's and Wallbanger, but you'd mentioned that you had made a lot of relationships back as an employee.
Yeah. I was in my senior year in college. I was 22 years old, and I was working at the Perkins Road, which is, for people from Baton Rouge, it's the thoroughfare. It's one of the, it's a great business district near Kenilworth. Well, at the time, I'm managing this fitness club, but I didn't realize every business leader, I'm not saying every business, but a majority of business leaders were walking that club because of racquetball. And the world was different than fitness club back then. We had a bar where they drank, they smoked in our club. Unbelievable. It's hard to even imagine this. And it was a racket-based club, and then we started bringing in fitness equipment. But I was very fortunate that I met so many business leaders. So 4 years later, when I get into real estate, I didn't realize who all the contacts I made. So almost any call I could make, they would take my call. They were friends. So I didn't realize what a great background the fitness club was, of meeting people, of learning sales, of learning management. It was a great tool for just pre-real estate. It really was. I can't think of any better training I could have done.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you were a Southeastern University grad, and then, but you didn't really start in the real estate business in earnest till what? You're about
27. I started I went to Southeastern, played football in the early 80s, and left my senior year to come to LSU. Okay. And unfortunately, did not finish my degree. And that's something I regret. And you remember back those days, you couldn't get a job without a degree. And it was a concern back then, but
well, it was tough to get a job, period.
You're right. I didn't, it was interesting back then because the clubs, we were busy in the fitness club business, because at $35, $40 a month, it didn't affect even the person who was unemployed or whatever. People would pay that if they wanted to work out. But what's interesting, what got me in the what got me in the real estate side, it sounds kind of corny, but I read about Donald Trump, The Art of a Deal. So I read the book and I'm going, oh my goodness, I want to do this. And so I went to the real estate test, and it was a couple of years before, in 1989, I'd been at the Wall Bankers for 5 years. I decided I wanted to try to get real estate. So I went and interviewed with Ladder and Bloom. And because the reason I went to Ladder and Bloom was a New Orleans name. Right. They seemed to have the most prevalent signs around town. And so I'm going, I want to try to work there. And so after a series of interviews with Mike Falgo and Edward Rodenberg, they decided to hire me. And, I was all excited, but I didn't realize how bad the real estate world was. We'd just gotten through, and I go to my first trend seminar. A trend seminar is it's the giving the trends of the real estate market. And right. So I'd been to work there 1 week, and so they put on this big trend seminar, and Mike Falgo, the gentleman, had hired me. He invited me to come. I need to be there. Everybody in our industry was there, the lenders, the appraisers, all the agents. And so Mike gets up there and goes over the state of the economy. And he tells me, he tells the audience, the worst times ever to be in real estate. Where unemployment's X, where the The savings and loan crisis has gone through. Oil and gas is all-time low. And it's like being in the Great Depression in Louisiana if you had to make a comparison. And I'm just start shaking when he's saying this. And so we leave. I run back to the office, and I run his office. I said, "Mike, why did you hire me?" And he said, "Well, you only want to apply for the job." So that's how I ended up in real estate, Ladder and Bloom. And I'll never forget it. My first year, and I was 27 years old, I made $5,032 was my income for that year.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, Donnie, let's take a quick pause right there, get a word in from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Sure, thank you.
Great story. MBD Automation is a proud sponsor for the Next Entrepreneur podcast, and we welcome them to the show. MBD Automation is a mechanical install contractor who installs conveyor systems and automated equipment, VRCs and singulators and sorters and all sorts of equipment that you'll find in e-commerce fulfillment centers, distribution centers, mail processing facilities, airports, and the industrial market and in the defense industry. MBD Automation works all over the United States and has a list of international clients that they perform work for in the U.S. as well. When you're looking for your next mechanical install contractor, reach out to MBD Automation. They can be found on the internet at mbdautomation.com. And we are back. We're with Donnie Jarreau, president of Jarreau Real Estate. And so you banked your first $5,000 year, right? So you're ready to move on to bigger and better things, huh? So, but the market was tough for a while, right?
Well, it was, and I didn't know anything. So nobody can entrust a 27-year-old kid that was a fitness club guy. So yeah, I could make the calls or the contact. And, these smart, business people tell me, give me a little history, tell me this and that. And I couldn't answer it. So basically the training back then, you sat and listened to people on the phone. And fortunately, it was a very active office. So after 1 year, it picked up quick. And so beginning in 1990, I was very fortunate to meet several individuals that actually had the foresight to start buying property. Because then you could buy property 20, 30 cents on the dollar. But there weren't many, but everybody was so scarred. Even people that had, that had the liquidity to do it didn't want to do it. I met two gentlemen, Paul Voorhees and Jim Tanner. And they had a partner in Montana. Jack Mitchell was very adverse to real estate. And they started making offers through me. And it was, for the next 2 or 3 years, I stayed very busy with these guys.
Really?
And then I met a gentleman, Mr. Gary Lewis, and this, it was a Friday afternoon. They wouldn't let me take the phone duty back then. And so I was only the one working, so I got to take a call. It was, I'd just been there it was actually the beginning of 1990. And he called up, he said, "Hey, I want to make an offer on these apartments. Meet me Saturday morning, and I'm going to make you an offer on some apartments." So I show up the apartments. He pulls up in a minivan that's probably 10 years old. He's got 6, 7 kids, and I'm going, "Oh, whatever. What is this?" And then make a long story short, I'm being one of my dearest friends, and probably I represented him probably $25, $30 million of real estate he acquired over the next 10 years, and has done very well. He was from Missouri. He was an attorney there, and has been a very seasoned investor in the Baton Rouge market. Yeah. But from there, I stayed with Land Bloom until 1992. Then I went to become a single broker. And I worked for Paul Voorhees and Jim Tanner as their exclusive broker. Then in 1997, I decided to start Donnie Jarreau Real Estate. And it was just me. And it was, I decided, I'd been in the business at this point 8 years and felt like it was time to utilize my experience, my name, and get out there. And at that time, I started developing. I started building a little bit of strip shopping centers. My first shopping center I built I was doing tenant work for Papa John Pizza. And when I say tenant work, so I was locating all the Papa John pizzas in Baton Rouge. And so it was a group out of actually Kentucky. So they said, "We need to be in Gonzales." And they said, "We can't find a location." They said, "You need to build us a shopping center." I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And I had no idea what I was doing. So I found some land, found a contractor, found an architect, and that was my first shopping center. And so from, I would say 1997 till 2009, we probably built a couple 100,000 square foot of retail shopping center. So that was kind of the base of the start of our development side.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So it's like you were going to figure it out on the fly, right?
Yeah. But I was very fortunate. I brought on a partner at that time, Edward Rotenberg, who we now have been partners. I started with Edward at Ladder and Bloom, and we've been partners, for 30 years in real estate on different different investment. So, but I got to start on the development side with him on construction.
Yeah, I had a kind of a similar experience. I had a friend who had reached out to a broker, and the friend wanted a garden office for their business, and the broker referred this lady to me, and she knew me, and she wanted me to build this office building, but it was on this particular tract of land that would have been for an office park, right? One of 9 or 10 buildings, but she only had one building, and she was really dismayed that I couldn't just go out there and rush and build her a building, and I hadn't developed anything at that point. So I said, "Well, hold on, okay, let me figure this out," and I ended up developing an office park on that particular property, and you just figure it out on the fly, you know. So cool. So at what point did you, do you have any watershed moments, any big deals, anything you look back on from your earlier years where you go, man, I'm on the way. We're really doing good here.
We were really blowing and going with new construction and rehab. We did a lot of rehab work. We, before, and I like to reference of 2009 was a turning point, unfortunately, when the economy, went upside down. So before that, we were building speculative. We took the Southdown Shopping Center we renovated that. We went from 60% occupancy to 100%. We renovated the Perkins Hardware was a cool project. Perkins Palm was a work live at the time. We ended up doing Investor Bank. We did the Rum House restaurant there. We did 30 units with retail on the ground. So we were really we felt like we were moving at a really good pace, and everything was sought out now.
Yeah, it's a multifamily.
We did, and that would end up being probably the worst thing I say on the business side. And the reason I say that, we started doing condo conversions. And so our first condo conversion we did it downtown in the Riverview, and it was an old hotel, and so we took that and we sold it out in 90 days.
Oh, you did that?
Yeah. And I said, wow, this is easy. I'm going to keep doing that. So I went and bought 100 units down on the bright side of the blocks. I went and bought 70 units in Franceville, 40 units in Natchitoches, built 30 units in Monroe. And then when it hit in 2009, and this comes on the cusp of, we completed everything right before 2009, then nothing would sell. I mean, there was no financing for the condos for the buyer. So at that point, now I'm stuck with overpriced real estate because we did the rehab, anticipating if we have $100,000 cost in a unit, we're selling it for $130,000. Well, now we have that $100,000 cost. There's no buyer, and I can't get but $700-800 in rents. So it was that was probably a difficult thing to overcome. And to this day, 10 years later, I still own a lot of those units. But they're servicing, but it's just, that was probably, I'd say, the most difficult part to overcome.
Yeah. So you had a lot of irons in the fire right prior to that market meltdown. I mean, you had a lot going on. You had a lot of deals, right?
We did. We were doing probably $10-20 million of acquisition and construction at that time annually.
Yeah. So what happens? I mean, some people don't quite understand what happens when credit freezes and what impact that has on business people. And, but for those who are leveraged, like you and I tend to be in our businesses, when credit freezes, it's devastating. I mean, it can be hard to survive even. So you need banks to lend people money so they can buy your condos, right? And you need banks to lend you money so you can continue to move your business forward. But, I had situations where I had good properties with maybe really nice equity built in them, which, but banks wouldn't lend money to someone to buy it. And it was a nice property, So it was tough time. So what was it? I know it's challenging for just so many millions of people really in our industry. But what was it, Donnie, that helped you every day just plow through it and keep coming in day after day and just fighting the good fight?
Well, first of all, I love what I do, and I'm not trying to be corny here, but I meet with a lot of young people being from Baton Rouge. So I have friends and colleagues. They'll send their kids to send me after college, and I tell them the same thing: find something you love. We don't want to make money. We want to take care of our family, take care of ourselves. You got to find something you love. So despite all that, I love what despite how tough the economy was, I love what I did. I mean, in 2009, I had a net asset value of my portfolio was worth $25 million, exclusive liability. That was my net. 2 years later, it was written down to nothing. And so I go from a $25 million net worth to basically nothing and still have liabilities. And for instance, then I have $30 million of real estate, but I owed $30 million. Right. Where previous, it was worth 55 and I owed 30. So it was just written down. It was very difficult because a leverage guy has to continue to borrow money to continue to do projects. And basically, so at this time, I'm highly leveraged. I'm calling the lenders, hey guys, what can we do here? And the response pretty much, hey, you'll figure it out. And pretty much had to. So at that point, I had to weigh a lot of options. I went and met with protection attorneys. But was the most encouraging advice I got was from the protection attorney, a bankruptcy attorney.
Right, sure.
He looked at my portfolio. He says, son, you've got still $50 million in assets. That's so hard to acquire. You will figure this out. He says, it's going to hurt, but you're going to get through this. And sure enough, it was. As, I had to write down my portfolio, but then, 2 years goes by and then I'm still servicing debt and appreciation comes by and we're still acquiring. So it was very difficult, but again, just I had to be more creative. So that was a part of me wanted, I still love my work, but I just had to really be on my A game to figure it out. And I'm very fortunate to get through it. And there was a lot of developers that are a lot smarter than me that did not. And it's just sometimes it's timing, being in the right place and communication, and any of my lenders will tell you, anytime they called, I picked up the phone. I never ran. I never hid. If I couldn't do something, I told them. But I was very transparent. I try to stay transparent. That's critical to me anyway.
Yeah, I got that bit of advice myself. Always take the call from your banker, and that works.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting if you look back to the mid to late 80s when you were getting started and you had, the RTC, and how they handled property dispositions from failed savings and loans back then versus the way that banks tended to extend and pretend on your covenants on your loans in 2009, 2010. They close their eyes for a bit in some instances to help, let some of the water pass under the bridge so business could try to get back and survive. And of course that helped some and not all, but, and then you look at how it's being handled today. I mean, it's like, the government's always trying to find out the right formula to navigate through these economic time bombs that seem to come more and more frequently, faster and faster. But you did get through it. Right. And then you go straight into rebuild mode. I take it because you've acquired a tremendous amount of real estate in the last 6 or 7 years. But let me pause right there because one thing that always strikes me about you, Donnie, is your energy level, right? And I don't think it's any coincidence that you're exercise fanatic and have a good energy level. But I think, that's really helped you just stay in the game and you don't let any grass grow under your feet, right?
No. I guess I'm a very positive person, but I really believe, I always look, I'm to a fault. I see the glass, if it's half full, to me, it's overflowing. And that's always been my persona, but I live by it. And, I never take it personal. When the lenders weren't lending to me, they're dictated by boards and by the market. So, most of these lenders are my friends. So it was something that if they could help me get through it, they did. And, if they couldn't, there were sometimes they had some tough situations, or they called some things with me that they had to put, put some legal situations that we got through. But and you mentioned lending. Back in you mentioned the savings and loans. Back in this was before I was borrowing, and there's a lot of shenanigans going on. Before the tax laws changed in 1986, so they were loaning 140% of funds on 100% acquisition.
Right.
So a lot of people did a little tennis camp, a little timeout. A lot of business leaders back then, and the 9 and 10, to me, they just shut the lending down. They didn't want to lend to hardly anyone. Then they slowly came out of that. And I always call after 2010 real underwriting.
Right.
I think they have done the lenders have done a great job of the loan criteria. They're looking for real equity. They really and today they're taking a step back. I think they're being patient, see what's going to happen in the market. But I guess the consensus I'm getting from the lenders, they're kind of taking a wait and see approach.
Right.
They're not looking to see out there do something really speculative or anything. I think everybody's kind of in a holding pattern until, again, they see what shakes out in the next 90 to 180 days. But I do think we're going to be in a low rate environment, which is, that's a good position for us. So I think things will get back to normal on the acquisition side, and I think it'll be a good time for this, because I think a lot of people are, the market's done a lot of ups and downs. So I think you're going to see a lot of people pivot to go, all right, let me look at real estate. It's a low borrowing rate. Here's the yield it's going to be doing, and compare to what they're doing in their stock portfolio. So I think it is going to be a good time to see more of the passive investor look for diversification in their portfolio's.
So Donnie, I wanted to ask you what a day in the life looks like for Donnie Jarreau.
Well, I have 5 kids, and they're 9 and 19, very involved. Unfortunately, we're a divorced home, so remarried, and it's a blended family. Then my wife reminds me I brought 4 to the party. She has 1. So, but we're very busy. I get up every morning, start my morning in my quiet time, my prayer time, and I quickly go to a workout in the morning. I catch, I work out, obviously I do a regimen workout several times a week. I swim, I do something, I'm changing, and I've got to do that. That's 7 days a week. You just get to work at 8. And our structure in our companies is getting a little bit better. I've been fortunate that I've got some great people that are partners now. In every one of my companies, I've got people, I'm not the only person. And so it's an array of meetings, emails, phone calls. And I usually work till 6, 7 o'clock, depending if the kids are there. And I'm sleeping at 10 and back up at 4:30 in the morning.
Wow. That's high energy, man.
Well, I've read a great book, Outliers. And one of the things Outliers helped me understand what success I've had in business, what did I attribute it to? And when I go back, I think of several things. I think about sports. Sports, you had to work hard. And that's something that, I was an average athlete. So to go play college football, I really had to work hard to get on the field, which I did. So that was a work ethic. But the second thing, when I got into the fitness club business, I didn't know we would get there at 6 in the morning when we opened, and we would leave at 9 or 10 at night. And so I thought that was normal. I thought working 13-hour days. So when I went into the real estate, when I went to Ladder and Blue, I'll never forget, as long as 11, 5 o'clock, everybody left. I'm like, whoa, where were y'all going? And so I think those extra 2 and 3 hours I worked every night, I really believe it paid off. So it's interesting. Now, I don't like to think I work 13 hours anymore, but I told my wife I get antsy. I get home before 6. So I try to get home before, between 6 and 7, but very busy days, fun days though.
Yeah. So what I find I've been doing the last few years is it's fairly easy to be overly engaged for me. By that, I mean, walking from office to office and being engaged and doing the same thing in the morning and then in the afternoon and the next day. But what I've been doing the last few years is giving my people breathing time to do their job, right? And so I think we've been growing more as a company by me, stepping back a little bit and, then you get your employees growing more and being more productive and more responsible and helping them maximize their potential, right? But if you're in there, for me, if I'm in there too much, it's I think it actually kind of end up hurting their, growth potential. So but it gives me time to do some of the other things that I do, and as well as doing strategic planning for our businesses but our foundation work and this podcast, for example, and I'm just enjoying that heck out of all of it. And I think I'm having more fun now than I've had in my entire career.
Well, it's hard to because you want to be successful and you want to oversee your companies. But one thing I think one of the things I really practice, I'm a macro guy. I hand it off and I let them go wrong or right, and I try to instill it to my partners, as I like to refer to them, and is that if you make a mistake, it's okay. Go at full speed. You'll never hear me question it. Well, let's learn from it.
Right.
But it is, it's enlightening to watch people grow. And you're right. I think if we're on top of them, we stunt their growth.
Yeah,
We got to let them make the mistakes, let them learn from it. But I think that's probably one of the things I learned about 10 years ago. Let macro lead and let your people go their direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there are times where your business is fragile, either starting or expanding, or you're leveraged, and you want to be micro, because if you're not, something could, impact your ability to move forward. But, once you get that breathing room and can be a little more macro in your management, it's certainly the way to go. But it's refreshing to be there, at least for me. Look, Donnie, we'll take another quick break, and we will be back in one moment. Modus is a proud sponsor for the Next Entrepreneur podcast, and we welcome them to the show. Modus is a national facility services company performing work for Fortune 500 companies all over the United States. So who is Modus and what do they do? These guys do the non-mechanical installations inside big distribution and fulfillment centers. So the way they like to say it is they take it from the conveyor to the dock door. What does that mean? It means they're building the pick stations. They're doing all the cabling for all of the electronic equipment. They're putting in bollards and barricades and signage and tape on the floor. And these are in huge facilities. They work in really tight time frames. They've never missed a schedule. So if you need help with your facility services in your distribution facilities, reach out to Modus. Modus can be found at modusmoves.com. Okay, and we are back with Donnie Jarreau, president of Jarreau Real Estate. So, Donnie, you touched a moment ago about this new thing you got going, this recovery concept. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we were launching a concept, Cove, and Cove is a recovery concept. The modalities that we will have in the recovery will be cryotherapy, get rid of inflammation. It's a lot of the NFL teams are using, and you're seeing it more in the marketplace. We'll have IVs, and what a time for IVs right now with B12 and vitamin C IVs to sit there. They help your immune system, obviously with the COVID situation and the continued to preventative help. We'll have red light therapy. We'll have saltwater saunas, but it is a place for recovery and preventive. Really, it's preventive medicine of what it is.
Wow. So, what's your rollout on that? Is that fully developed right now?
We have been working with the gentleman, E.K. Navin and Troy Archer, my partners in Regimen. We have been talking about recovery since we first got together and started Regimen 3 years ago. And it's just a market that it's wide open, and you're seeing mom and pop start with it. But what we've learned the last two and a half years with Regimen, how do you franchise? How do you scale? And so we've come up, we believe, with a concept that's very scalable. We'll open up 3 locations in the next 90 days. We'll open up one in Baton Rouge, one in Gonzales, and one in Pensacola. And they will all 3 will be located next to the regiments, though they're separate businesses. So, it's not just for the athlete. Our regimen concept is really a 20 to 50-year-old base membership. Well, this is a membership that's 20 to 80. I mean, because everybody has a different part of their life. But, to take information out, to sit there and to bring the IVs, if you're having deficiency, if there's some things we can bring through the IVs, it's just, we think it's going to be something that's, we think has more potential than anything we're doing right now.
Yeah, very cool. So I wanted to ask you about your philanthropic work. You've done a number of different things over the years. You have your own foundation. Tell us about your nonprofit.
Well, EP Sports Foundation is our nonprofit, and we started it started. I went to Bel Air High School. I was a second freshman class, and so I met a coach from Coach Dorsey, and this is probably 15, 20 years ago. And I met him in LSU basketball. We started talking. So I wanted to see my old high school, so I went and met him at Bel Air, and I asked him. I said, "Where did the freshmen dress out football players?" He goes, "Well, we don't have a freshman team." I said, "Why not?" He goes, "We can't afford the helmets." I'm going, "Why?" He goes, "Yeah, there's not a budget." And I'm so right then and there, I thought to myself, all right, so you take a 14-year-old kid who can't play football because they can't afford a helmet. And so he doesn't play football that year. So what happens to him? Maybe he goes on the streets, he makes a bad turn because they can't afford a football helmet. And so at that point we went and we started EP Sports Foundation. Everyone plays. And we furnished the football uniforms for Bel Air. We've given equipment to some of the middle schools in the inner city that weren't able to afford that. We've continued to bring the inner city kids to. We've kind of turned a little bit. Now we're taking them on camping trips, canoe trips, and different things. Yeah, young lady Erin runs that for us. And our next, we're trying to get we have a fitness club on Monterey Boulevard that we're trying to start some programs to help the children that are inactive, obese. We're trying to come up with some programs to bring them in there. It's a foundation. I surely wish I could spend more time, and that's one of my goals. As I'm able to get more key people in my organization, and it'll allow me hopefully some more time to spend with EP to give it the direction it needs.
Yeah, well, that sounds like really worthwhile project there. So best of luck with that. So a couple of wrap up questions. I was a little curious about your culture at JRE. And how you build leaders. Like, what is Donnie Jarreau's magic sauce for, building a quality team?
I think the first thing that if you talk to our partners, and I like to think of them as partners, is just the communication. Everyone's voice is heard. Does not depend on what your position is in the company. Yeah, it's fun. It's exciting. We listen to each other. We laugh. We have functions outside of work, but I think the main thing is to hear everyone's voice, and everyone to be respectful of everyone's voice, to value each one's opinions, not to discard that, and that I'm open. If you want to come talk to me, I want to be accessible to everyone in our company. I don't want everyone to have that same thought process, and I think that creates a culture.
Yeah. Yeah, that's strong, man. That's cool. And just wrapping up here on your long-term vision. So you've got your new gig. We started off talking with your private equity initiative. What's your long-term vision for that and your other companies?
My long-term vision is have my current partners or people that are running these companies to step up and run them themselves. That I'm more on an advisory role, that they're not dependent on me. And every day I think we get further away from them being dependent on me, but I've been very blessed. We have some great people, and I mean that they don't worry about the clock. They don't think about, how to avoid the situation. What can we do to make it better? And they know my goal is to basically step away and sit as an advisory role for the 4 or 5 companies that we have. And so I think every day I'm getting closer to that. I'm 59 years old, and I don't think there's ever be the word retirement. I think I'll always be involved and want to be. I think that's the worst thing someone can do, is just completely disconnect. And so I want to be involved in more of an advisory role and let my people lead.
Yeah. I mean, you can't help but do, right? I mean, you're going to be doing something. You don't have a choice with that.
I don't believe in old age. I think old to me is 90 to 100 now. So I hope to be, God willing, he leaves me here and I'm engaged with my people. And, again, man, every day is a true blessing to me. And I mean that. I truly live life like that. I believe the first thing I do, I wake up and thank God for this day. And it is. Every day's a blessing.
Well, it reads through with you, Donnie. And I think everyone sees that. And you are a complete asset to our city and our state, and what you've done for Baton Rouge is extremely impressive. And you're whether you know it or not, you're a heck of a role model for a lot of people. And I know a few people who tried to emulate your success, very aggressively back in the day. But thank you for all that you do, and continued success with all of your projects. I know they'll never stop coming, and best of luck with all of your philanthropic work as well. Donnie is a real high energy individual. I know it has served him well in starting his business and running his business, but I think it has been key as one of his survival techniques. Anyone who's been in this industry for as long as he has had to deal with some tough economic situations, and he has navigated his way through those very successfully. High energy, hardworking, very driven, and very intelligent. He will tell you he's not the smartest guy in the room. Don't ever be fooled by that. Donnie has a reputation of being at the highest level in the industry. So Donnie can be found on social media at Regimen Fitness. That's REGYMEN Fitness, or online at Jarreau Real Estate. That's JARREAU Real Estate. Thank you for listening to the Next Entrepreneur podcast. We'd like to thank our title sponsor, Mainspring Companies. It can be reached online at mainspringcompanies.com. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach us at ask@nxtentrepreneur.com. You can subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher, or iHeartRadio. You can help support our podcasts by leaving a review on Apple Music. You can follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please share this episode with your family and friends. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. They can be reached at propelyourstory.com. Today's episode was produced by Daniel Sagona.